Hey folks, it's time for the quote of the day, and today we're going to be quoting the same man that I quoted last year on this day. I reposted last year's video. If you wanted to watch that so you could get a little bit more context about who he is, you can go do that on my page. Today we are quoting Hubert Horatio Humphrey, former vice president of these here United States under Lyndon B. Johnson, and one of the most important voices and minds behind not just modern day liberalism as we know it now, and not in a bad way, in a good way, but also one of the most important voices in terms of the civil rights movement. There is a very very good chance that we don't get many of the laws passed that the civil rights movement brought about without Hubert Humphrey. It's just he's just such a powerful voice and a pigmentally challenged voice, which is important because they weren't exactly going to be listening to black folks, right? That's just not how it was back then. So the fact that he was a white guy absolutely helped because he spoke up about the civil rights movement. He was very very adamant in adopting these things and making sure that black people were treated equally. As a matter of fact, during, and I don't remember if it was a campaign speech or if it was just a speech for the civil rights marches or something like that, but I remember a quote from him, which I think you can actually hear it. I think that there's audio of it where he says, there are people out there that say that the civil rights movement is pushing too strong, is going too far, is this kind of thinking, and he's like, but no, we are 172 years too late. That's the truth. Is that the civil rights movement, and he's right, was 172 years too late. The fact that it had to exist at all at that point in time is just a repudiation of everything that we should understand as far as American and progress and things like that. So I absolutely love this man, and as I said in the previous video, the one from last year, he is I mean, there are little things. I mentioned in that video that he signed off on going to Vietnam. That was, he was vice president, so that was more LBJ's thing, and he was just supporting his administration. But there are a few other things. There were during his when he ran for president, there was a lot of infighting, especially in the Democratic Party, and we had the Dixiecrats and people like that even then, and there was a lot of slanderous things, a lot of accusations about poll workers being paid off and things like that, all sorts of things that we see in the playbook of Republicans today, that were really leveled at him, and especially back then when people still had this kind of altruistic way of seeing the country and politics and in general. They just were like, oh my god, I can't believe that somebody would ever cheat in an election. So that's how they were back then, and the fact that anybody said it or mentioned it or brought it up as a possibility was a mark against Humphrey in his presidential run. And there were little things like that, like accusations that would fly and nothing would ever come of them. They were just people talking shit, saying things about him. But one thing that does stick is, first of all, he was, and this is not a mark against him necessarily, it's just to show kind of the duplicitous nature that one has to adopt in the public eye. He was a rampant and avid smoker, that was just like basically when he wasn't on camera, he was just like but, and that shouldn't be on the internet that I just did that. But anyway, you get the idea. So that's what he did, and then was in his public facing was outspoken, right, against it. And so it's one of those things where you kind of see that he did have that ability to kind of create a public persona, which does give you a sense that, at his heart, he was still a politician. And that's important to understand, right? Like as much as I want to kind of, especially in the last video, like pump him up as being this great man, he was still a politician. And I'm not trying to take away from him, because in comparison to especially politicians today, which there is no comparison, he is, I mean, he's essentially an angel sent down from heaven. But at the time, these were scandals, right? And that shows you how far we've come and how far we've fallen, really, I should say. But it gives you an idea of just like the kind of standards that we had for our politicians back then, the way that we looked to them to be examples and leaders. And he, despite the fact he was only the vice president, was one of those people. And he used to say that the president has, and at the time this was the population, the president has 190 million bosses, and the vice president has 190 million and one bosses. And he really did believe that. He believed that government was there to work for the people. He believed that the president answered to the people. Now I want you to contrast that to what you know of our administration today, and the way that they tell us what we're going to do, and the way that they tell us what they're going to do and to make things better, but they don't ever actually do that, right? Like prices are going up, everything's worse, definably, provably worse, everything. And that's because they're not listening to the people. They're not listening to our desires. They're not listening to our wants. They're not listening to our needs. They're just doing whatever the fuck they want to line their pockets and make more money for them and their tech bro fucking dickhead piece of shit friends and all the countries that have hands in pockets. Yeah, I was going to say something horrible there, but I'm going to keep it to myself. Now, as far as the quote of the day, this is going to be challenging for some folks, but I genuinely believe that it's absolutely 100% true. I think that this is the path forward for change in this country. I really genuinely do. Now, Hubert Horatio Humphrey once said, "To be realistic today is to be visionary. To be realistic is to be starry-eyed. To be realistic today is to be visionary. To be realistic is to be starry-eyed. Starry-eyed, like stars in your eyes." Now, there are people out there that will disagree with this. There are people out there that believe that the way that I'm approaching this quote is not what he had in mind. And they would be right, because he could not have foreseen where we are as a country. He could have seen little tidbits of it and little snippets and samplings, but he certainly couldn't have foreseen where we are. Humanity has always looked to fantasy, has always looked to ideologies or hopes or the future or even the past, or just completely looked to things that aren't real as a way of avoiding the pain and the stress of what's happening. But also they sell themselves, we do this as well. If we look over here, then it'll become these things, right? Like if we idealize America and we make it into some sort of, golden city on the hill, as Reagan said, then it'll become that. Even though it's not that, it will become that. The problem is that all too often, the way that people today think, especially, they leave out all the steps to that golden city, right? Like they leave out all the hard work that comes with that, and the fact that you're going to have disagreements, and the fact that there's going to be people that don't want to hear what you have to say, and there's going to be people that check out entirely, and there's so many roadblocks and things stopping us from ever being that it's just not realistic. It's just not realistic. And so when you keep that in mind, when you have an understanding of that, it's really important that all of these grand, lofty hopes and dreams and shit that people have are based in pragmatic reality. One of the things about Hubert Humphreys is that he was pragmatic. He cared about making the small incremental steps to change necessary to actually get that big sweeping change. This was something that mattered to him. He wanted it to happen, and he understood that it's never going to go from here all the way over there. It's got to be small little things, and you got to celebrate your little wins, lick your wounds on your losses, and then you keep pushing forward. He understood that. And that realism is very, very important in today's world, because we are losing in massive swaths. We are losing chunks of liberties and rights and freedoms. We are losing the ability to say and think and do the things that we want to do. And we need to start fighting back. But so many people are saying, how? And Hubert Humphrey told us. Happy birthday to the former Vice President of the United States, and a good man. The rest of you, take care of yourself. Take care of others. I'll talk to you soon.